We all have that one Doctor Who episode that we saw as a child and it terrified us. It's a show with a reputation for scaring children, leading to it earning the famous hiding behind the sofa tagline. Well, unless your sofa's against a wall. How was I supposed to hide behind it then? I'm not Flat Stanley. For me, the episode that terrified me was the most obvious one, the Empty Child two-parter. The story that puts the Doctor and Rose in 1940s London where they encounter a child capable of creating zombie-like clones just by touching them. From the moment they aired, these were two beloved and celebrated episodes, but I didn't even watch them. I remember visiting my auntie and as we were leaving I saw a clip of the empty child on the TV. The simple visual of the gas mask child scared me enough that I had nightmares about it for 6 years, and only watched it for the first time in 2015. So many restless nights because of this episode. No wonder why people hated Steven Moffat so much. So 15 years later, let's revisit the two-parter that ruined my childhood. The story begins with the Doctor and Rose chasing an unknown object through space. I like this because it thrusts them into the action and they have no control where they land. It's reminiscent of the first Doctor who couldn't control where his TARDIS took him and his companions. We know the Doctor and Rose have landed in London, but it's great that we don't know what time period they're in, creating a nice, albeit short-lived mystery. It also tells us a lot about the Doctor because he doesn't just scan to find the alien tech. He prefers the more personal approach of asking people, although that doesn't end well for him.
But has anything fallen from the sky recently?
I like this scene. It's completely unnecessary and could have easily been cut out for time, but it adds so much to the episode, immersing us into the time period with 1940s style music, fashion and iconography, such as the gas masks that the empty child and his zombies wear. I love the introduction to the empty child, the monster of the story. At the start of the episode, Rose is drawn away by a mysterious child on a roof, but the real kicker is when the Doctor returns to the TARDIS to hear the phone ring. It's great because it shouldn't ring. It's not actually a police box, so the phone shouldn't work. It's so hauntingly creepy to hear that same child speaking, affirming that there is something very wrong about all of this, especially because of Nancy's enigmatic warning. Moffat does a great job building up tension in this episode, with each of the child's early appearances telling us more about it, and establishing it as a threat. He arrives at the house and starts to supernaturally manipulate items such as the telephone and radio. It shows how powerful he is, with Nancy telling the Doctor he can't touch it otherwise he'll become like the child. I love this because at first it's unclear as to what this even means. It's so chilling when the Doctor actually sympathises with the child and opens the door only to find that the child is gone. However, we soon find out exactly what Nancy means when the Doctor goes to Albion Hospital, the same place we briefly visit during Aliens of London in the first two-parter. We see an entire ward full of patients resembling the gas mask child, with his same injuries. This scene is great because not only does it establish who the child is, but it also tells us that touching the child makes you become just like him, highlighted by the grotesque, graphic transformation of Dr. Constantine. It's this kind of visual that really benefits from the CGI New Who was able to use, compared to the inferior technology of classic Who. The Empty Child is one of the best villains in New Who history. It's not some fantastical, hard to comprehend alien, it's just a little boy wearing a gas mask, an image that isn't inherently scary or threatening. The terror comes from how human it seems, but instead the child is completely hollow, the shell of a dead person puppeted by nanogenes. It's relentless and always coming for Nancy.
Is he coming?
Annie, as long as you're with me, he's always coming.
The consequences of getting caught by the child are also completely different to most Doctor Who monsters. Instead of just killing you, it brutally and slowly transforms you into a mindless, empty drone. It's a concept that is driven home when the Doctor is examining the gas mask zombies and finds out they're not dead, despite having loads of injuries that should have killed them. Nancy is a great character. Early on in the story, we find out that she sneaks into houses during air raids to feed homeless children, which is stealing, but it's a good show of morality and shows us her bravery. Florence Hoth really brings the role to life with her vulnerability and determination. She's so convincing as Nancy, especially when she's caught by the owner of the home she broke into. She blackmails Mr. Lloyd, knowing that he only owns the extra food because of an affair with the butcher. It shows her inner strength and determination, along with showing that she was justified in stealing from him, as he is wrong to have the food in the first place. Nancy is shown to be more mature than her age, and this shows throughout, especially because Moffat chooses to have her return to the children she's caring for, rather than ignoring them as the plot could have easily done. It's one of the biggest giveaways that she is a mother, which turns out to be the big twist of the story, as she is Jamie's birth mother, but she hid from the truth because of the stigma of being a young, single mother in the 1940s. In a way, her constant running from the empty child is her literally running away from the truth of her being a mother. She's too ashamed of the reality that she pretended Jamie was her brother, trying to escape the truth because she's scared of it. It's great character drama. Speaking of great characters, one of the most important things this two-parter does is introduce us to Captain Jack Harkness, the roguish, charismatic former time agent who has since become one of the most famous faces of New Who. Near the start of the first episode, Rose finds herself hanging from the loose rope of a barrage balloon during an air raid, which is a scene that I think looks great and shows just how good Series 1 could look on such a low budget. When Rose starts falling from her precarious position in the sky, she is rescued by the instantly charming Captain Jack. The story presents him as similar to the Doctor, but with the mannerisms and gadgets you'd usually expect from a charismatic time-travelling sci-fi character. His ship is flashier, and he has a sonic gun rather than a screwdriver. He's pretty much the Doctor if he was American. I like how the episode sets up an interesting backstory for Jack, with him being paranoid of time agents, missing memories after working for them. It adds layers to this cheesy, smarmy character, giving him interesting motivations and an edge, since his plan was to con the time agents, selling them a broken Tula ambulance doomed to be destroyed before they could get to it. It also serves as a vessel for tying the mysterious object to the gas mask zombies, even though it wasn't Jack's intention for this to happen. I really like Jack's arc in this story, as he eventually redeems himself despite this heroic act dooming him to die. Much like the earlier Slitheen story, this is a two-parter, with a dramatic cliffhanger separating two episodes. However, it's pretty much the exact same cliffhanger as the one at the end of Aliens of London, and this detracts from it, especially how it's concluded at the start of the Doctor Dances. The ending of The Empty Child sees the Doctor, Rose and Captain Jack surrounded by gas mask zombies, with the Empty Child himself closing in on Nancy inside the house. It's a really tense, great cliffhanger, but it's resolved by just having the Doctor tell the zombies to go to their room, so they leave, that's it. It's a bit of a slap in the face, and it's never sat right with me. It's a clever twist, but it still feels cheap, even if it's unexpected. It's similar to the redundant cliffhangers of classic Who, where the villain is standing there like, "I'll kill you, Doctor," and then in the next episode they go, "Nah, never mind." The resolution makes sense and it fits the themes of the story, but it still feels too anticlimactic. However, the disappointment of the cheap resolution to the cliffhanger is immediately remedied by a fantastic scene, where the main trio go to the child's hospital room to investigate, listening to the audio recordings of an interview with the child. In a brilliant twist that puts most big budget horror movies to shame, it turns out that the tape ended a while ago, and that the empty child is in the room with them. If you've watched this episode more than once, it's nowhere near as effective, but it's such a good twist, immediately restoring the tension and stakes from the end of the first episode, leading to a brief but great chase scene with a great back and forth between the Doctor and Jack.
Disruptor cannon, what? It's Sonic, totally Sonic. I am Sonic to a Sonic what? Screwdriver!
I love how the stakes begin to rise higher as we get closer to the climax, closing in on the bomb site. Nancy finds herself chained to a table in a room with a young soldier who soon turns into a gas mask zombie, despite her attempts to hold the transformation at bay. It's a great tense scene because we know what will happen if he touches her. As the Doctor, Rose and Jack arrive, we find out that the disease has gone airborne, turning a guard into a zombie right in front of Jack. Not only is it a race against the bomb falling, they are now vulnerable to the transformation at any point, point, but things get even worse because the ambulance's alarm goes off, summoning an army of gas mask zombies. It's such a great way of building tension because our protagonists are trapped and time is against them, making everything look bleak. But I absolutely adore how the episode ends. The Doctor works out that the answer lies in the nanogenes.
Nanomachines, son.
These yellow glowy boys have been floating around throughout the story, such as when they're used to heal Rose's rope burns. It's funny because we don't even expect them to be important, since it's Doctor Who. The stories are usually fixed by something we never even knew was there. However, the ending makes so much sense, it was seeded throughout. The Tula ambulance uses nanogenes and it changed the child, so the Doctor works out that the nanogenes are the key to fixing everything. It's great because this wasn't some sinister invasion, it was just alien technology trying to do its job without knowing what it's supposed to be doing. It's so refreshing and different, especially after earlier in the series, the Gelth turned out to be evil after offering the same kind of unique storytelling device. Similarly, the story subverts the usual trope of Doctor Who episodes being complete bloodbaths. It's one of the few episodes in the show's entire history where nobody dies. It turns out that Nancy was the child's mother, so by hugging him, the nanogenes realise what humans should look like. So it fixes everyone and restores them to normal. It's such a beautiful moment, a truly happy ending, as the Doctor exclaims those iconic words.
Just this once. Everybody live!
The Doctor's joy translates perfectly because he's such a tortured, sad soul, so it's great to get to see him enjoy the end of an adventure for once. I also like the last few moments of the episode, where Jack accepts his death, having redeemed himself, but he gets another chance because the TARDIS arrives to save him, the episode ending on the Doctor and Rose dancing with their new friend watching on. It's great because it shows that even the scariest, most horrifically dark Doctor Who episodes can be wholesome, and end on a nice, fun note that leaves you satisfied. It's a reward for going through this haunting journey. It's simply a brilliant, flawless ending to an episode like this. The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances are truly magnificent episodes of Doctor Who, combining to create one of the most memorable and beloved stories of the show's modern life. Visually, it's stunning, a gritty, period piece horror that takes place entirely at night, creating a dark and sinister atmosphere as our protagonists find themselves relentlessly pursued by zombies in gas masks. It's an amazing, original concept, with alien technology simply not understanding human biology, therefore creating a walking nightmare. It's astonishing that Steven Moffat managed to create such an infamous, remarkable TV story on his first proper go. It shows just how creative and in tune he is with Doctor Who, the power of having been immersed in it for years. I think The Empty Child 2-parter easily deserves a very high A rank on the Series 1 tier list. It's a stellar 2-parter, but it's let down by the resolution of the cliffhanger. It's also not as great when you revisit it because you already know the twists. Even though it's a great journey, it does kind of rely on these twists to keep you invested. But even so, an A rank is a very, very good ranking. If every great episode was an S rank, S ranks would be meaningless. I'm looking at you, Gallifrey Base, with 8 out of 10 being a new 5 out of 10. From the creepy atmosphere to the terrifying villain, The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances barely put a foot wrong. Oh, and who wrote this episode again? Steven Moffat? Huh, can't say it rings a bell. I wonder what he went on to do after this.